Our guest today is Dayna Hrovath, and we get to geek out on skin. Dayna is a health coach who specializes in psoriasis, and we do love a good specific niche. Not only do we talk a lot about inflammatory skin conditions in this episode, but we also talk a lot about how Dayna has built her private practice and how she blends it with her day job. It is always fun to hear from and learn from our health coaching peers. Please enjoy. Hi, I'm Erin Power.
And I'm Laura Rupsis.
We're certified health coaches, and this is Health Coach Radio.
This podcast is about the art, science, and business of health coaching.
We share our insider tips to help you become a better coach and entrepreneur.
And we interview expert guests to discover how they've made it in this growing field.
It's time for health coaches to make an impact.
It's time for Health Coach Radio.
Dayna Hrovath, thank you for joining us. How are you this morning?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. How are you?
We're great. We're excited to dive into this. We were talking before we clicked record about all the things we want to talk about, and there's lots and lots to talk about. You have a specific specialty that you've got personal experience in, which is what we tell all health coaches to lean into. Your story, your specialty, the problem you can solve, all of that. And I would just love for you to share your journey with our audience. And so to start, just let's share about who you are, kind of how you got here.
Yeah, sure. So I am a conventional medicine trained originally, physician assistant, and I've been doing dermatology for 18 years. And I was perfectly happy with, you know what you know, and that was enough. And didn't really ever think about alternative options. It was pharmaceuticals, and that's the answer. And you just need to fit into this mold and this cookie cutter. And then my world was rocked. I ended up having other health conditions that affected me, ended up with Lyme disease that messed me up pretty good. And I just wasn't getting to where I thought I should be with just going through the pharmaceutical route. And then it made me start opening into, I knew there was something wrong. Like, your body, and no matter how many times someone wants to tell you there's nothing wrong, it's all in your head, or you just need to take an antidepressant, it's not always that's the answer. So I really dove into things, started researching, and just was like wowed by all of the proof and the research and things that show that, these natural things can actually work and do something. And so that made me think about how I'm treating at work people with chronic skin diseases and just telling them that your only option are these medications that you have to take the rest of your life. And so I wanted to give another option. So I did a functional medicine training so that I knew more rather than just reading here and reading there, and put everything all together into this cumulative group of ideas so I could do a step-by-step approach to walk someone, especially with psoriasis. I have just an affinity for that condition and love working with people who have it. And so I could set up a game plan for them to be able to follow, to know what steps they need to address and in what order to really help control that inflammation in their body and their disease without always only having to rely on medications.
Very cool. A winding tale.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So conventionally trained physician's assistant went back to functional medicine to fold that in. Would you say that this is kind of a loaded question, but it's a safe space? Are you blending the two, or are did one overtake the other?
Yeah, that's a good question. So when I am at my conventional medicine dermatology job, it's a blend of the two. But whenever I'm working with clients who want to do things separately, that is a whole other beast, a whole other hat. And that is my separate business, Fountain Mills Functional Wellness. And that is strictly without medications, where I am not seeing people as a PA, not using my medical license in that way. It's a completely different separation of church and state But this way I'm able to still help people who are not ready to make lifestyle changes and who have not had their eyes opened that there are alternatives, so that I can meet people where they're at either way.
Nice. That's a good point. That's, I think we need to just accept that some folks are still believe in the conventional, realm. I think about my parents who still go to the doctor. So do you call yourself a coach then in your private practice? What do you call yourself?
Yeah, really, I just jokingly call myself their psoriasis guru.
Nice. I love it.
We've been talking about this at our school too, in terms of just language and terminology and using the term coach. We feel that's a powerful term and we need to own it and define it so that other people don't.
Mm-hmm.
But another term that comes up when people like you have some additional training, or there's an aspect to what they do that's not just coaching, the term practitioner, I think, is a kind of a fair game term in many ways. But there's a question I want to ask you, because you made a really good point, and this comes up for me sometimes, is when we have folks that are interested in becoming a coach that are licensed clinical professionals in their state and are under the impression that even if they're a health coach, they are still subject to the limited parameters of that licensure. So, for example, I had someone who seemed to think that because she was a dietitian, she had to always practice to the highest level of her licensure. She wasn't allowed to practice differently as a health coach. And I was like, I don't think that's true. I think you can have separate businesses and separate offerings where through your client communications, you're outlining the path they're taking with you in this respect. And this is, those sort of things. And rather than looking at your licensure as a limiting factor, use it as the ability to wear a different hat when appropriate. But I don't know, what have you found in that realm? Have you run into anything like that?
Yeah, it is a lot of muddy water. And so you just have to really be careful when you do have a license. You have to make sure that everyone is fully aware, if you're working in your own business, your own side gig, however you want to define that, that's separate from your license, that, this is educational. I am not diagnosing you. I am not treating you. I am not telling you medically what you need to do. I am basically like a book that you're reading and encouraging you along the way. But ultimately, everything is your decision. And we have no patient-provider relationship. So everything just needs to be very clearly stated, very clearly outlined. And you as the person just also need to be very careful with how you're presenting yourself and what you're saying. And because you can't, when you're a clinician, you're automatically have this knowledge and you want to give it, but it's having to choose how you give it is just really important.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds like coaching to me, right, Erin? How she describes what she does in her private practice?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Resourcing. And well, I guess the question is, what does the support look like with your clients? Is it, do you have weekly sessions, or how do you help them? How do you guide them?
Yeah, I have two different options. I have a group program that it's a 10-week program, and we walk through that together. There's online modules that everyone will go through at the same time, a new module each week. And then there's weekly live Zoom calls to be able to ask questions, get my support, then get support from each other too, as everyone's walking along that journey, trying to make these changes together. So I really like the group aspect of it. But then there is also an option where people can choose to, especially where finances are more of an issue, that they can just get access to the membership site, and it drips out one module a week, just like if we were walking through it live. And there's a heavy support email so it's basically what I would tell them if I was speaking to them and encouraging, and any things that week tend to be a little bit challenging for other people, bringing that to light and encouraging through it. But that doesn't have the direct live support from me.
Okay, love it. We're into programming, which I love talking about. So here's what we've got. We've got a very clear area of expertise, the psoriasis guru. We have a curriculum that teaches concepts so that the client can learn about their skin and inflammation. Just here's information. And then we have the support piece. If they want it. So if they jump into the group coaching relationship, they get the weekly coaching calls with the group, or they can do a DIY version of it, which your email sequence that you have that supports that is based on the predictability of having taken people through a very specific curriculum. I just want to put this out there to coaches because this is what makes it flow. Like, we have to know what we're the expert in. We have to have some kind of, I'm going to keep using the word curriculum. It could be an online learning management system, like it sounds like you use. It drips a chapter once a week, or it could be a series of PDFs or some Google Docs or whatever, but you have to have something to teach and guide. And then the coaching relationship is the cherry on top of that. But this is like standard programming, and it only becomes feasible when you have a clear point of view, right?
Yeah.
Psoriasis.
I love it. So can you give us a little inside scoop into kind of what you're teaching? And you're talking about sort of overcoming this inflammation and psoriasis and chronic skin illnesses naturally.
Yeah.
Take us through that a little bit.
Sure. So the program, it's called the Psoriasis Solution Program, and I call the method that I created the 3C skin saving method. And we look at 3 big chunks of work because all 3 of those need to be balanced to be able to really see improvements in skin and health. So the first one that is the foundation of everything, that section is called Calm the Gut. And we're working through that over a 3-week span where we're just really helping to reset and calm the inflammation, re-inoculate, learning all the things that we need to do to get our gut health right, because disease begins in the gut, like Hippocrates said. We need to make sure that that is good before we start adding on more levels. And then once we're through that chunk, we move on to the clear effects of stress, because stressors on the body absolutely fuel inflammation, fuel psoriasis, and other autoimmune conditions. But there we're looking at how stress is affecting us, how we can manage that better, because we would all love to live in this perfect world where there's never any stress, but that's not going to happen. So how can we lessen the effects of that stress on us and make better choices in our life so we're not giving ourselves unnecessary stress? And we look at sleep, the importance of that, how to improve our sleep. And then the 3rd week of that chunk is on movement and why movement actually matters to the skin. And aside from just people think I need to exercise to lose weight, but there's so much more, especially with inflammation, with movement, and how to incorporate that in a good way, because sometimes people don't move enough, but sometimes people move too much where they're just doing too intense of a workout. So helping people find their right activity level. And then we move on to the 3rd C, which is cleaning out toxins. And we're looking at environmental, household, personal care products, all of those toxins, the ones that we have control over. We're not going to be able to handle what's outside in the air, but you can control a lot. And toxins are what you think of your body like a vase, and toxins are water. You can only pour so much in before you overflow. So if we can keep that vase draining so we don't overflow, that would be great. So that last part is how to do some gentle detox strategies on a regular basis, not just doing these like 5-day cleanses to detox and things like that. Something that you need to do to keep your vase draining on a regular basis.
Oh my gosh. This is so great. Most people don't think, oh, my skin is acting up, must be a problem in my gut, or boy, so in everything you're talking about, coaches, is right in your wheelhouse. Everything she's talking about. I love all of this. Can you just because I know Erin has a question, but just for complete clarity, help the people listening really understand what psoriasis is, how it presents, what's going on that causes it a little bit, and then we can maybe dive into why what you're talking about can absolutely help clear the problem.
Psoriasis is an inflammatory autoimmune disease that causes the inflammation, causes the skin cells to start shedding too rapidly. And then they just keep piling up and building on top of each other. And the most typical type, the most common type is plaque psoriasis, where it looks like someone put a sticky or a sticker. They just stuck it on the skin. Often you'll see it elbows and knees, but it can occur anywhere from head to toe. And it's usually red with a silver, white, flaky scale. And so it flakes and it itches and it burns and it'll crack and bleed. And there are other types too. You can get these little tiny circle ones called guttate psoriasis that spread all over. And we have inverse that attacks the folds of the skin, like under the breasts and the groin and the armpits. We can get scalp psoriasis. We can have pustular psoriasis that creates all these little like pussy pimples along with rash and can affect palms and soles that just crack open and you can't even touch anything. It's extremely miserable. So there's a lot of different ways, but it doesn't just affect the skin. That inflammation also can affect the joints and cause psoriatic arthritis. It can affect the eyes, causing something called uveitis. And it can also make people more prone to heart disease, high cholesterol, diabetes, lymphoma. So there's a lot of effects aside from just, I don't like how this looks. It really is a full body problem.
Mm-hmm. I think that's the most interesting thing about inflammation and teaching people about it is they show up with the obvious symptom they don't like, skin, rashes or sore joints or whatever it might be. And it's explaining to them that's actually just a signal that your body's sending. There's actually a lot of here's what's happening inside the body systemically. And I don't know, but that's that whole body, that whole health approach that unfortunately most health consumers have been not introduced to. So it's always fun to kind of explain that to folks, the mechanism of inflammation. Okay, well, I wanted to dive into like each of these steps kind of thing. So you start with the calming inflammation piece, calming inflammation and supporting the gut. So is there an elimination diet protocol here? How do you do that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I definitely do recommend and give people the steps to walk them through. Basically, an elimination diet that's a little more focused specifically towards foods that can be more triggering for psoriasis in general. So it's your regular elimination diet with some little bit of tweaks. And then so help them, how do I do this? And then how do I start introducing back in? And then I do also give an alternative option for people who are just like, I need hard proof. I need to see something. So I'll give them access to be able to get a food intolerance test. But, that is just a picture of the day that an elimination diet is always the better choice. But sometimes people have to see something before they're willing to start making these changes, giving some credibility to what we're trying to teach, I guess. And so, but diet, absolutely number one, first place we start when we're looking at the gut, getting rid of that standard American diet and those crap foods and trying to quickly reduce the inflammation that way, as then we start to improve the gut lining and improve the acid production in the stomach and maximize the microbiome, because people with psoriasis and different diseases have different imbalances in your gut, but people with psoriasis absolutely have certain levels of dysbiosis that need handled.
Yes, I like this because when I talk about this with my clients when I'm explaining inflammation and I talk about the gut and I want them to like understand what we're doing here. And it's like, okay, there's a fence around your gut bugs. I describe it as a fence. We have to fix the fence first, and then we can get in and adjust what's happening inside the fence. So heal the gut lining and the actual physical structure of the gut, and then you go to town on the environment inside the gut. So is there specific gut bugs that are pertinent to psoriasis that are out of balance that you need to double down on? It's an exciting time to be a health coach. Scientists are uncovering the mysteries of the human microbiome. We're now gaining clarity into complex gut health issues we didn't even know about a decade ago. This means it's also a great time to become a gut health expert. Primal Health Coach Institute's Human Intestinal Microbiome and Health and Disease Specialist certification is for health coaches who want to help people heal the root problems of many of their health symptoms and conditions. A recent survey spanning 73,000 people across 33 countries found that nearly 40% of adults suffer from a gastrointestinal disorder. As an expert in gut health, you can offer unique programs and services to clients looking to manage or reverse a diagnosis such as an autoimmune disease, irritable bowel syndrome, or type 2 diabetes, or those who wish to improve their overall health. Gut health expert, cardiologist, and best-selling author Dr. William Davis teaches you everything you need to know about the human microbiome, including coaching tips to give you the confidence and credibility to support your clients and help them heal their guts, sleep better, gain more energy, and enjoy stronger immunity, balanced mood, smoother skin, and more. Find out more about how to become a gut health expert. Visit primalhealthcoach.com.
Yes and no. So candida is a huge one that can be a driver for psoriasis. And then oftentimes people are low in Akkermansia, which is a good bug to help reduce inflammation. So, and then there's some other bad guys that often they're a little bit more elevated, but those are the two biggest, is that too much yeast and not enough Akkermansia.
Yeah, that's interesting. We, Primal Health Coach Institute, we have an entire course that teaches around the human intestinal microbiome, where we explain these exact species and kind of like what they do and all of that. And I interviewed the author of that program, Dr. Davis, a few weeks ago. And even though I've taken the course, every time I talk to this guy, I learned something new. And I'm like, oh, that's right. There's just so much to know about what's happening in there. You can't possibly know it all. But starting with these few things like you were talking about, candida is super common. And by the way, I mean, I went on a anti-candida diet. It was restrictive, but boy, did it do the trick.
Mm-hmm.
Solve the problem. I didn't need to go on any medications, and for 6 weeks, I had to just eat nothing but meat and veg, basically.
Oh, darn.
That was kind of it. Oh, darn. I know. I kind of eat that way anyway now. You get used to it and things taste better. And being able to identify something like I think the more specific we can be to people and point out with specificity, the more confidence they have in their direction. This comes up a lot for me, and I'd love to hear how you address it in terms of the role of probiotics and just how effective they really are. And are food-based, like just fermented foods, better? How can you do that? I mean, I don't expect you to give away all your trade secrets. I mean, you have your program, but you get asked that question a lot in terms of healing the gut and how to access that and try to make that more effective.
Well, even from clients, like clients are always like, should I go on a probiotic? And you know, it's sort of the thing that people leap to, I guess.
Sure. Yeah, and I am a fan of them at the right stage. And so it's not just a blanket here, everyone, probiotics for you, probiotics for you, but getting your live cultures with your foods. Yes, I love when people are incorporating different types of fermented foods. But just going to the local grocery store and grabbing some just regular yogurt off the shelf full of sugar, thinking that that's going to give you lots of probiotics. It's not. It's going to give you hardly any, and you're going to get too much sugar on top of it. That's just going to add to your inflammation. So that's not a good way to do it. If you're going to do a yogurt, it's basically making your own and starting basically your base foundation with probiotics that are crushed or a powder, a very good quality one, and then making yogurt that way if you really like yogurt. But sometimes people will add on their probiotics too soon and too much, or they'll think, oh, I love sauerkraut. I'm going to eat a whole big bowl of it. And then they feel like garbage afterwards because that was too much. Your gut may only be able to handle you putting in a spoonful for a little while and then slowly adding. But in general, the more we can get in with food and at the right time, some good quality probiotic supplements, you want a wide variety in your garden. You don't want to just focus on one species. So that is really important too, is getting, if you're going to take a probiotic, is getting one that has multiple types of species in it rather than just focusing on one.
Right. I think that's a really good opportunity for coaches and people doing coaching is quietening the noise around some of these very popularized health behaviors. Like, oh, I heard probiotics is good. I'm gonna just devour every fermented food I can get my hands on and buy some brand of probiotic. It's like, I can help you take a stepwise approach here that's going to feel better and actually be more effective. Like I think that's really such a valuable use of a health coach's skills, truly. Like being intentional with this stuff, right? So we get to teach them how to do that and they have better outcomes. Okay, so cool. Stress fuels inflammation. So that was one of your second stops here. And I'm just curious, this is just for fun, but how do you explain that to your clients? Because here's the deal. People on some level, again, know stress is bad for you. Gotta manage my stress because it's unhealthy to be stressful. But I always think it's interesting to hear how people describe mechanism to their clients, if at all. So how do you describe the role of stress as an inflamer?
Yeah, sure. So in a couple of different ways. So stress also affects the gut microbiome. So I go back to all the things they had just learned with their gut and how it's fueling the bad guys and suppressing the good guys. And it also is making their gut more leaky. It's attacking that lining of the GI tract. But then moving into and all of that contributes to inflammation. But just like I was saying earlier about how toxins, you can only pour so much in your vase, I also use that same analogy with stress. We can handle so much and then we just overflow because that stress is not just making us feel grumpy, but it is also just really stirring up our immune system. It's attacking our hormones. It's suppressing certain hormones and elevating other ones. And it just becomes this boiling pot that eventually just erupts.
Yeah.
Nice.
Anytime I try to speak to stress, I try to draw out from a conversation perspective when my clients know what does their body feel like when they're in a stressful situation. And we'll try to kind of brainstorm the symptoms of rapid heart rate. Their stomach feels queasy a lot of times, right? You get that rumbly feeling. So why does it seem that I think is like an aha moment when we can connect. Okay, I'm in a stressful situation. My body actually responds physically to what my brain is thinking and the hormones that are being produced. I get sweaty, I get headaches, my heart rate speeds up, I start to feel hot, and I start to get that weird queasy feeling in my stomach. So why is it such a stretch to kind of make that connection between stress and the body's response and what's happening hormonally and how that affects these little guys down here? Because there's more of them than there is us.
Right.
And they respond to certain things. So I love that.
Yeah, our body can respond. We get that feeling just like our ancestors did when they needed to go run from something chasing them. That's what we have these certain built-in responses in our body to make us go. But we can't always stay in that state. Then we're not getting the good parts of our parasympathetic, kicking in and getting us to calm down and relax. Our body is just like all the time.
It makes you wonder about the origin of the phrase gut instinct.
Yeah.
Like, do our gut bugs know? Are they like, hey, there's a bear coming, or
Yeah.
But that's actually how I kind of describe it to my clients too. I always describe stress as this metaphorical bear that's chasing us. And like your body doesn't know what you're doing. It doesn't know that you just crushed a ridiculous workout, or you were stuck in traffic and it was frustrating, or you're obsessing about, how you look in your bikini. Just thinks a bear is chasing you. It's elegant in its simplicity. And then it's just a circling of the wagons, protecting you, getting you ready to go. And so many essential body systems shut down. So I just think it's fun to come up with these, like we all did here, to come up with these stories that we can tell our clients to explain to them so they can understand what we mean when we say inflammation. Um, so coaches listening, try to come up with your own little story there. It's really useful.
Yeah. And I like inflammation as a smoldering fire in you. That's.
Yeah. Gotta have our metaphors. Gotta have a little metaphor. It helps people understand, I think, but not too goofy. We want them also to understand the science of their body. So then your approach to stress management, which is a phrase makes my skin crawl. No pun intended. But I remember when I went through nutrition school, that was literally the extent of our lesson on stress. Just help your clients manage their stress. Okay, moving on. And it's like, hey, increasingly we just are bathed in stress. Like it is everywhere. And it's not easy to manage. And if you told your clients, well, just manage it, just go off and manage it, they would feel completely overwhelmed and not know where to start. So I got the sense that from your perspective, it's like, okay, well, let's be realistic about the fact that stress is here. It's not going anywhere. Maybe there's some we can take a little of the power back from. Let's find the places that we can kind of claw back some of our mind share. But more, it's like learning how to coexist with it in a healthy way. Talk through a little bit about your philosophy on stress management.
Yeah, there's no one perfect stress management for everyone. It's finding what works in your particular life. And so I give all kinds of examples, both things that are physical, like if you're going to go take a bath, or you're going to go for a walk, or you're going to go do some yoga, or is it something where you're just sitting quietly, you actively meditating, whether you're praying, whether it is just doing box breathing, whether it's turning on your favorite song and singing at the top of your lungs, the list goes on and on and on and on. And just also helping people remember to show themselves grace, and helping them also remember to express gratitude, and working through those kind of things as well, not just active resets.
Yeah. Nice.
Love it.
Cool.
So when you speak to sleep, do you kind of tackle sleep and stress in terms of how they impact each other? Is sleep something well, they impact each other, but how do you explain, is there a distinct mechanism of action that you speak to as relates to sleep and inflammation and psoriasis?
Yeah. So when you're not getting enough sleep, that's another stressor to your body, because you need to have 7 to 9 hours for your body to regenerate cells for that your skin needs, to help go around like a vacuum cleaner and gobble up the gunk that shouldn't be floating around in your system. And that's just to oversimplify, but these are absolutely necessary things that have to happen when we're sleeping. If we're not sleeping, our body can't fully function. And so how do you think your skin is going to get better if your body is barely surviving, getting through each day, running on, 3 or 4 hours of sleep each night? And it's not so easy as someone just say, well, you should sleep better. People know they're not sleeping well, or they're trying to get their 8 hours, but they're just laying in bed, tossing and turning, and can't get their mind to shut off. So we go through how even what you do and you first get up can set you up for success whenever you're going to bed at night. So it's going through your whole day, what you do matters, good sleep hygiene, and then suggestions to troubleshoot whenever you're having certain issues pop up that's interfering with sleep. How can I help my body get through that so that I can really get my 8 hours that my body needs.
Mm-hmm. I think there's a gap in understanding here, and this is where, again, we have such an interesting opportunity as coaches and practitioners, because our clients will say, yeah, I get 8 hours. I don't know. I do pretty good. My sleep is like 8 hours in bed, whatever. Like, they have this really shallow point of view with respect to what good sleep is or means. In my practice, just a small anecdote, I work in a completely different realm than you do. I work in metabolism, basically. Mild insulin resistance is what my clients struggle with. And I've come over the years I've taken them through how metabolism is present in the wake cycle. Obviously, when you're eating, moving, metabolism is an awake body system because it's the fueling system. But then the sleep half of metabolism, what's happening when we sleep, that, this entire 24-hour clock is metabolism. Actually, it's all in there. Which is, that's never been conceived of, like, for these folks in terms of like fuel. Oh, when I'm asleep, there's mechanisms that are pertinent to my fuel when I'm awake. With skin, though, it's almost so clear. Like, the repair process of sleep has to occur, right? Clearing out the junk, getting that cellular cleanup that happens so that we're not re-triggering inflammation, actually physically allowing skin to heal. Such a clear link. I wonder how much your clients get excited to. Do they get excited? Okay, this out of curiosity. Is it exciting or overwhelming, or a little bit of both, to know that this has to also work while you're sleeping?
A little bit of both. Yeah. Yeah. Because for someone who truly is sleeping well, it's super exciting. They're like, great, this is one thing that I'm actually doing right, whenever they're trying to make all these different. So you have that. And then you have someone who's like, okay, I really get it. I'm excited about making this a priority because that's something I don't actually actively have to do. I just have to go to sleep. And then there are other people who are just sleep so terribly that at first that's like, oh, I'm never going to be able to do this.
That's right. Or they thought, oh, I thought I was off the hook when I was sleeping. I didn't have to be working on my skin when I sleep.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I'm curious to hear about movement as it relates to skin inflammation. So is it the fact that food and gut health and sleep and stress and movement all have a combined effect on inflammation broadly? Or do you find that there's some sort of direct mechanism for psoriasis in particular? Or is this sort of like hey, these are best practices in general to have lower inflammation in the body, is addressing these things relative to movement?
So yes and yes. Yes,
Okay.
It's important for all of it, but having muscle directly impacts how much inflammation that you have in your body. If you're sarcopenic, meaning you don't have enough muscle tone, you're going to have more levels of inflammation. Muscle is anti-inflammatory. So even though when we're exercising those muscles, we're building up a little inflammation at that point, that's good inflammation that then will help kind of kick out the effects of bad inflammation. So that's kind of the direct response with psoriasis in general, since psoriasis is a disease of inflammation. That's just no way around that. So yes, should everyone exercise? Absolutely. But it's really important for that inflammation.
I've never heard that, Erin. I don't know about we hear all about why having adequate muscle mass is so important for multiple reasons: metabolically, weight loss, heart health, I've never really heard people say that having adequate muscle or enough muscle mass is actually anti-inflammatory. Have you, Erin? Have you heard that?
I haven't, but I can make a case for it.
Yeah.
Especially if you have, I'm going to geek out on the metabolic pathway, but if you have adequate muscle and those muscle cells are insulin sensitive, then you're better at clearing glucose, and then that takes away one mechanism of inflammation. But yeah, I haven't heard it directly correlated that way. Curious if you have any insight. Yeah.
And it's not the be all and end all of inflammation, obviously, but yeah, it's one piece of the puzzle.
Part of the picture. I love that. Yet another reason to build some muscle. But the other side to that coin is, there's the not enough. And then there's the two, and we would agree with you, by the way. This is what we teach at our school too. There's a Goldilocks sort of framework in terms of movement for people. And yes, building muscle is important. And there's a method to that madness and a way to do that without overstressing yourself, injury, overtraining, and what have you. And I think people can make the connection between too much and causes of inflammation too, because there's two sides to that coin. Is this an also when you're talking to people in your group, finding out what works best for them specifically?
Yeah, it's throwing out ideas and what's going to fit into their schedule, their life. Where do they start if they haven't been moving, and how to incorporate different aspects of it. We don't just want to go out and run. We need some strength. We need some cardio. Yes, we also need to make sure working on our balance and our flexibility, a full kind of comprehensive approach, not just picking one, and really making sure it boils down to make it fun. Because if you're not helping them understand that, making it something that they enjoy, they're not going to do it. It's not going to be a thing that will continue to be a part of their lives. They'll do it because you tell them to, not because they're actually wanting to. So it's finding what that looks like for each individual person and helping them see exercise doesn't have to look one way. That has been changing, but for most of our lives, it's been drilled into our heads that exercise needs to look a certain way, but it doesn't.
Right. Gosh, it's just so interesting to as we go, pick your brain all the way through your curriculum, the opportunities we have to teach people, like the general health consumer, right? So first of all, we have to recognize that if we're listening to this podcast, we're probably not the general health consumer. We're probably some slightly more woke health, person. But stress, we're talking to them about the mechanisms of stress and how it behaves in the body. We're talking to them about the mechanisms of sleep and how it affects, their total picture of health when they're awake. We're talking about how the conventional wisdom around exercise has been kind of programmed into us a little incorrectly. These are all ahas for people who are kind of going through the motion, believing the conventional beliefs about this stuff. And we have so many opportunities to teach. We have an overwhelming amount of opportunities to teach and to reprogram people, which is in the purview of a health coach, helping people understand actually how this stuff works. It's very exciting. I think it's pretty exciting. I will say I did get a little nervous when we got to the next part, which is the toxins. Clearing out the toxins. So I like that you kind of use gentle language. It's look, you don't have to, knock this out of the park. Let's do, enough of this to, start getting some water out of the vase. We have environmental, personal, household toxins, removing some of those. That's one of my main inadequacies. Whenever I hear people talk about it, it's oh my gosh, I haven't done that.
I still have plastic. In my
I have a
house.
scented candle right here. You know what I mean? It's oh my gosh, I've not even touched that yet. Of all the health journey, it's becomes then you can connect to the overwhelm that people feel when it's I got to change this now. So you have that piece, and then I get the sense that you have an actual maybe liver support detoxification protocol you do. But let's talk about environmental, household, personal toxins. I mean, this is just a huge fraught conversation in and of itself, but how do you broach this with your clients who might feel as overwhelmed as I do?
Yeah. So it's first they go through chemicals and why they matter and what you're kind of looking for, and having them have, a cheat sheet if they want to start looking at labels, can carry around and be this has got this, and oh yeah. So it's so overwhelming. So I don't expect, or did I do it myself this way either. I did not go around and replace everything in my house, everything that I put on me, all at one time. It's, trying to make one educated decision at a time. So that may look like, let me start with what I use for my laundry products, because,
Your skin.
Yeah. And your skin's one big mouth. Everything that it goes on your skin goes inside of you to some degree. So you're wearing these chemicals, we have our detergent, and then people will use their fabric softeners, and then you've got like your scent boosters and your dryer sheets and all of this garbage that we put on our skin because everyone thinks we need to smell good. And yes, everyone loves the smell of Downy. It's great, but these toxins, you're basically walking around in 24 hours a day. You're sleeping on your sheets that are washed in those. You're using the towels, your clothes, all of it. So it could look as simple as, let's just start there. Get there's Truly Free laundry products. That's a great brand. Branch Basics is another good one. And you can get these things, and that's a simple, when that bottle of your Tide or whatever is done, switch over. Instead of using dryer sheets, you could get wool dryer balls and do a little essential oil on the dryer ball if you want to have some scent or fragrance. There's all kinds of ways to get around the toxins in your laundry products. But then you can also, as you get comfortable with that, then maybe, okay, I want to switch my lotions that I'm putting on my skin, or switch my cosmetics to less toxic products. And there's tons of different great brands out there. I really like Poofy, Poofy. It's a great alternative that you could give your clients. They have makeup, they have eyelashes, they have fingernail polish, they have household cleaning products, they have all kinds of things. And so it's nice. It's kind of like a one-stop shop as you're slowly trying to change one thing at a time.
Nice. Yeah, that's great. So it sounds like, the hierarchy is the things that touch your skin: laundry, lotions, makeup.
Yeah.
And then once you get comfortable with that, then that it's easier to make changes once you've made changes.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's like, I get it now. I know how to do this. And I always really like when folks say, just, finish up your bottle of Tide and then we'll move to this next, because people really get nervous about wasting and the panic to do this perfectly right out of the gate. It's like, oh, it's all good. We're going to just do our best here and make these small, important steps.
Yeah.
Okay.
One change is one change. Everything you do matters.
That's right. Whenever I get a lot of DMs on Instagram from people who want to sell me their beauty products, makeup, and it's like, I'm not ready. I'm not ready yet. I'll let you know when I'm ready. I don't know. Not ready.
Oh, I was just going to try to say, okay, so you've got these 3 C's each 3 weeks. Is it like a 9-week program or?
Yeah. So the 3 C's are 9 weeks, and then we have a prep week and before at the beginning, and then a summary week at the end to just kind of bring it all together.
Got it. And you're overlaying coaching calls for those that want it.
Mm-hmm.
So do you mind getting into a little bit about building that business? So here's a question that comes up, because one thing we talk about in our school a lot, and we're one of the few schools that are actively addressing how to get a job and how to build a career and recognize the fact that it's not easy and that there's stepping stones people need to take. And Erin and I talk about all the time, keep your day job. Don't jump ship and find yourself in a situation where you only have 6 months to make this work. That's the fastest way to not make it work. I mean, everyone thinks there's going to be this magic parachute if they don't give themselves an option. And it's way too stressful. And we've seen a lot of people crash, not a lot of people, a few people crash and burn that way. So you've got your day job here, and then you have your business. How friendly is your current practice and the dermatologist in there? Are some of the people that you're seeing at that practice becoming private clients? Do you have to keep them completely separate? Do you not talk about it? Do you mind sharing a little bit about just the logistics of this life for you, having your day job and your private practice? How do you juggle both? Is your practitioner friendly to you for those that don't want medications that likely wouldn't work with him or her anyway, and you taking those on? Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah. So I work part-time. I work 3 days a week at my day job. So that allows more time to be able to do my own business. And so whenever I wanted to go down this route and start that, I had a very frank conversation with my employer and saying, this is what I want to do and what that's going to look like. And he was very supportive and is totally on my side for that, and encouraging, and is okay with if someone's there and it's something that they're not interested in medicine, that I can be like, hey, there is this other option, and let people know about that as well. But I like being able to be there part-time so that I can also feel like I'm giving my baby enough attention and to be my best version of myself to be able to help other people.
I love that.
Yeah. I mean, in this situation, we talk about sort of generally folks leaving their full-time regular professional careers to go do this. And like Laura said, we don't encourage people to leave. So you're 3 days a week at the clinic. You had a frank conversation with the dermatologist, like, here's what I'm doing. And that's, in that particular situation, really important, I think. But somebody like me coming from advertising, I didn't have to have that conversation with my boss. I wasn't like, hey, just so you know, I'm going to go off and be a health coach. You didn't care. I don't care what I'm doing in my spare time. I can do whatever I want. But at some point, I did have to have a frank conversation, because I had to start saying, in my head, my business is growing and it won't grow anymore unless I scale that back. So then I had to go and have a conversation with my boss and say, I want to talk about how I can scale this back because I have this other thing that I'm building. Like, at some point, we're going to all have this conversation with our employer, which is great to have to do it. In your case, you had to do it right away. In other people, they won't have to do it until it becomes a going concern. But the gist is, build your thing. It will build slowly. It just will, until it suddenly isn't slow anymore. Then you get to have this conversation with your employer about, I've got this thing that's building on the side and I really want to focus on it. And I think you'll be surprised at how supportive your employer might be.
Right. You never know unless you ask, unless you're in a position like my old position that would not have flown.
Right.
But I didn't leave until I knew, if I don't make this move myself, it's not going to be my choice.
Yeah.
They were starting to notice that I was a bit checked out. And are you sure this is what you want to do? These are the conversations I was having with my direct employer. And I felt comfortable enough with him personally to say, hey, look, I was put through the ringer. I don't know if you know that this is what I went through for this period of time. He had no idea because I didn't share it. Back then in that role, I was afraid. This is a time I was in finance, Dayna, and it was during the 2008-2009 crash. God forbid I say out loud that I'm physically struggling, because I had colleagues that were being laid off left and right. I could not show any sign of weakness or I would have lost my job. Right. So nobody knew I had gone through that. And it wasn't until after that fact, when I had sort of been reborn, basically, from a health perspective. And then I was like, boy, this lifestyle really sucks. I don't want this job. I don't want to be on the road all the time. And that's what was starting to come through. And it took a couple of years for it to become clear to my boss. And when I really kind of explained what I wanted to do, he again was supportive of me in terms of just following my path, but they needed somebody in a full-time position there. And then I had to kind of make a decision, but back then, there wasn't what's available now, which is opportunities to join practices part-time or contract work. And I think a lot of either existing health coaches or organizations, perhaps business will eventually grow to the fact that you can't do this on your own anymore. And you need to hire people to help you. And you don't need someone full-time, but you would like to have somebody that can help you 3 days a week, right? So there's lots of these positions available. And as long as you're not siphoning clients off from the company that you're working for part-time, as long as that is separate and you're doing that differently and what have you, I think you can meet each other's needs. And it's just about being honest, really digging through sort of what's out there and asking, just offering your services when you see this happen. So I think that's just phenomenal that your employer was so open to you moving into a part-time position, and he's supportive of you. And I agree with Erin. I think many people will find themselves surprised by the response they get when that happens. So where are you now then? Are you happy with where you are and you envision staying this way for a while? Or is the goal eventually, not that I want you to like give up give up anything in case your employer is listening to this. Is the goal to ultimately be full-time, or?
Who knows? Yeah, right now I'm good with how things are. And sometimes just thinking about completely ending as just my day job in conventional medicine, that makes me feel like a little ick. I don't know that I'm ready to say goodbye to that completely, but I also really enjoy my new child that I have over here too. So right now I'm enjoying having both.
Nice. Well, that's great. I mean, that's ideal. So that's the kind of just check in we all need to do, right? How does it feel if it's working, right? So, Laura's kind of alluding to this. Health coaches who are leaving a completely different professional career can find some kind of partial step, part-time, something in the health and wellness realm, and hang on to that and build your thing, and do that as long as it feels good. And then when it starts to feel different, then you move. There's no hurry. There's no hurry to do this. Do it at the pace that feels right. And the last thing we want to do is put more pressure on ourselves to go out there. So it's very convincing. It can be very easy to be convinced to scale to, I guess it's 7 figures now that we're scaling to because of inflation. I don't know. Scale to 7 figures, and it's very romantic. It's like, oh, 7 figures? Oh my gosh, I'm just over here happily paying my mortgage and living my life. I didn't know I was supposed to be a $10 million health coach, or 1 million, I guess. Well, 8 figures will be the next thing that we're going to hear next year. Scale to 8 figures. It's like, come on. This just feeling of being content, though. It's good. It's working where it is right now. And that's nice. I mean, what a nice place to be, right? You can make that decision to leap full time into it if that feels right, but there's no hurry.
It's interesting how you say that kind of feels ick to you to kind of leave it full time. And I'm hearing that when I'm talking to folks interested in understanding health coaching. They're coming from the clinical space. There is a segment that are like, I'm out. I'm done. Apparently I've got to build something completely outside this disaster if I'm going to make an impact. But there are those that have a tremendous amount of empathy for the patients and for their colleagues that they know are struggling as well. And they're like, if I can make a difference with anyone by being able to bring another side of the picture, to your point, be able to provide a blend of options, is really empowering to them too. And they kind of, I think, feel a sense of obligation to try to help the conventional system change slowly. It's happening very, very slowly, but there's that side too. And I would imagine there's I don't know, I guess a sense of satisfaction knowing that you can have your cake and eat it too, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. So tell people where they can find you. I mean, I think this is a great niche, and we don't talk enough about skin problems. I feel like everybody in this space, it's all about metabolism and weight loss. We're starting to see autoimmunity come up more and more. We're starting to see more and more people wanting to focus on the human microbiome. We keep cautioning them, gut health is not a niche. Right. Psoriasis and the psoriasis guru, definitely a niche. But we're seeing a bit of a trend away from just weight loss as a focus, which is fantastic. And so I would imagine there's health coaches that either A, are suffering themselves, B, have clients that they don't feel equipped to handle, or C, just kind of want to see what you're doing and how you're building it and all of that. So where can people find you?
Yeah, so you can go to just my business website, which is fountainmillsfunctionalwellness.com. Or if you want to have something to give someone, or you want to check it out yourself, I have just a quick ebook called the 3-Day Jumpstart to Loving Your Skin. And you can get that at 3-Day Jumpstart, but it's 3 spelled out THREE instead of the number 3. So yeah, 3dayjumpstart.com.
Awesome. We'll put that in the show notes. Thank you so much. This was so fun. Very enlightening.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was great.
This podcast was brought to you by Primal Health Coach Institute. To learn more about how to become a successful health coach, get in touch with us by visiting primalhealthcoach.com/call. Or if you're already a successful health coach, practitioner, influencer, or thought leader with a thriving business and an interesting story, we'd love to hear from you. Connect with us at hello@primalhealthcoach.com and let us know why we need to interview you for Health Coach Radio. Thanks for listening.